Hello and welcome back to the Invest podcast. You may be thinking, is there a third person here? There is. Got myself, Isaac, Jack, and Jimmy Drossos. Now, to introduce Jimmy right off the bat, one of the most influential people in my life, and Jack, you may echo the same. Jimmy and I have known each other for a very long time, and I'll elaborate more on our connection when we discuss the topic, which is coming shortly. But Jack, firstly, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm happy. It's high energy today. We're excited Jimmy's on here. Our first ever guest, and couldn't think of a more fitting person to join us. Someone that's shaped our entire lives, essentially, just to cut a long story short. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, for those that don't know, the structure of our podcast is we talk about something we've done this week that's kind of in self-help or anecdotal that we've helped improve, and then we talk about a broad topic. And this topic is how to be a better teacher. That's our topic for this week. And I thought there's no better person to call in than Jimmy. So Jimmy's been a leading teacher at some of elite private schools here and overseas as well. He's taught in Singapore. Has been really involved with education for many years, and I think Jimmy's teaching philosophy and how he teaches is very unique and sets him apart. So wanted to pick his brain on the podcast and just to share his insights. So thanks for coming on, Jimmy. How are you?
Oh, humbled with that introduction, boys. Very make me feel very special with those kind words. I'm well, mate. Just happy to be on the show with you two young guns. Very happy to be here.
Absolutely, Jimmy. Well, thank you. Well, we'll start then with our thing of the week. And mine is, Jimmy and Jack might be aware of this. I'm almost manic with the amount of ideas I have in a week. And I always seem to have them fleeting. Like I'll tell someone about this idea I'm having. Let's say, okay, let's have an intervention to help people do rehab at home. I'll have some random thought of that, right? Coming home after injury, we should make this app that monitors whatever it is. And I have all these ideas, and I thought I need to get somewhere to write it. So I've created a little sort of thought diary, if you will, where I literally bought myself a nice fountain pen. Hard to see on camera, but it's here, right?
I'll take your word for it.
It exists. It exists.
It's the hologram book.
Yes, exactly. It's the virtual background, and I'll just write down the idea I have, and maybe I'll never refer to that idea again. But at least I'm putting it somewhere, and I don't know. It just helps my creative energy flow. So that's something I've done this week, and yeah, I think if you're someone that always has ideas and always writing up, get it down somewhere. And I think writing it out actually is something of an art form, right? Like putting it together, making a mind map or something. It's good.
I was actually going to ask you about that. Like, I was going to ask you, like, why the choice of a physical book? Like how come you chose that instead of a digital collection of ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I have my iPad, and I could always write on the iPad. I could write digital, probably, but there's something about the pen to paper, and I guess it's set apart for distractions. Like on my iPad, I can do so many other things, but this book is for that purpose, and I pick that up and wherever I am, and do that. And Jimmy, you're a man that likes to write things down as well. So is that one of the reasons why you like the pen and paper with your to-do list?
Yeah, look, it's again maybe it's a generational thing, but the old school paper diary, just nice and simple. I don't know what it is about it almost feels more real when you write it down physically, rather than do a little type up or a sticky note on the laptop. Or there's lots of great ideas out there, but for some reason it seems to resonate with me when I write something down. It feels like it sticks more, but that's just me. I know everyone's different, so I'm an old schooler, Isaac, unlike you guys. So that still works for me.
No, I could completely agree. I'm definitely old school in nature. I feel like I love sticking to the things that have always worked, and that's one of them. And Isaac, as a doctor in training, I'm sure you can answer to the psychological difference between writing something on a piece of paper versus typing something out on a piece of technology. I'm sure it has a very different psychological response, which is probably why we feel different when we use something like that. So, I'm sure that would make a lot of sense. But no, it's interesting, man. It's good. You got a lot of ideas, and I love getting those calls like, Jack, we got to do this, blah, blah, blah. I love it. It's actually, it gives me life. So it's good. And I'll move on to the thing of the week for me, which is a short one. I feel like it's always maybe diet training or like lifestyle related, but I've just been eating a lot of fish because that's my thing of the week. I've personally been a lot more time poor, so I haven't been able to cook as much. And I find that a lot of the healthiest foods you can have, you need to cook on the spot generally. That's why people will kind of go for takeaway more often, or just foods that you can be warmed up, and generally it's not the best. So I find meal prepping things like salmon is very easy because you can cook that in the oven. While that's going, you don't even have to do anything. You just go about your life, do your washing, cook something else, go do whatever. And I feel like it kind of lasts a bit nicer and is more convenient throughout the week as well. So It's more of a convenience thing, but I just feel generally day to day slightly more energy. Like when I finish a meal with salmon, I don't feel tired like I would with something else. So random, but that's what I've been doing this week.
Absolutely, I love that. And
Incredible.
Jimmy, the bluefin tuna in Santorini in Greece, I hear that it's beautiful. Some of the fish along there. You a fish lover yourself, Jimmy?
Look, I'm not quite as much of a seafood man as maybe what Jack is, but that's just admirable, Jack. The way you managed to turn these time poor events into something positive, mate. So that's just incredible to hear. Well done.
No, thank you. But it's an opportunity to learn something new. You know, how can I make this process easier than it was before? So instead of falling into the excuse of I can't do this now, so I have to resort to something else. It's like, well, if you really want to do something, you can do it, within the constraints of life. And sometimes you have a constraint of time, but you can make more time. Like cooking via the oven versus a pan means you don't have to actually be there. So you can do something else. So there's ways to create time, I feel. But anyway, that's almost just by accident. It's worked
Great
out.
mindset, mate. Great mindset. Very, very positive. And that's great to hear. Hopefully there's plenty of listeners out there to take on some of your good advice. This is excellent.
Absolutely, love it, Jimmy. Now the special guest gets to tell what's something you've tried this week or something in your week that you do that feels good.
Look, I'm lucky enough to live close by the beach, and as often as I can, obviously weather permitting. It's been a bit of a rough winter, but whenever the skies open up a little bit and we get a nice bit of sky, which was today was a good case of that, we just pop on down to the local beach, and you find yourself feeling very small and anonymous, and that's I think that's quite humbling, and it helps with perspective, because we often find life's problems are overwhelming because we're always in our own heads, and sometimes environmental change makes a big difference. So that's definitely a win for me, boys.
So love it, Jack. You spoke about this as well when you were at the beach and how you felt the mindset shift. I think we said a lot of people as they grow older and want to escape, that they go towards the shorelines, and there's something about the ocean.
Are you referring to Jimmy in this? Are you saying he's growing older? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, Jimmy's young at heart. That's the main thing.
I'm embracing my age, Jackie. No problem without that, buddy.
No, that's awesome. So I love that, because for those out there, maybe you don't live near a beach, but perhaps you can take the opportunity for that 10-15 minute drive to a close one, or even further, and have your like lunch, a sandwich or something by the beach, and just change up the physical. And we always say, that helps with changing up the mental. But let's get into today's topic. And I'm excited for this, because I think teaching, and I believe all three of us here are teachers, not only just from an academic perspective, which we do, but in life, like, as brothers, as, sons, as fathers, all of that we might be here, different combinations, we're teachers and people. So I want to start by asking you, Jimmy, what does teaching mean to you? And then maybe Jack and we can just express what it means to us too.
Look, it's an opportunity to build relationships first and foremost, and I guess that's what's drawn me to the industry. I didn't sort of set out to be a teacher, and was something that I always knew that I valued, even at a younger age, back when I was sort of your ages. I knew that I would enjoy that at some point, and finally made the call to do that, in my probably late 20s. And it was about the idea to help people, really, in a really simplistic way, and grow them. And that was what got me through to sort of starting. And I sort of loved it ever since, and been doing this for a while now, but that never seems to grow old, the ability to help people. So that's the one that got me going.
That's really interesting how you've had such a change. You said late 20s. I feel like a lot of people kind of, let's just say, quote unquote, decide what they want to do. Which ends up changing sometimes, but that they make those decisions as to where they want to go a bit earlier than that. So what kind of made you shift towards teaching, at that age, other than the things you mentioned, wanting to help people, but what happened there? Like what was the actual impetus of that?
Yeah, look, you make decisions at different stages in your life, and those decisions aren't fixed, but they feel like they are especially when you're younger. You make calls, and even dealing with some of my year 12s right now, they're in the middle of trying to make, decisions about their courses, and, it becomes overwhelming because you're supposed to know, and, the pressure comes from society, comes from schools, from parents, what do you mean you don't know? And, that's not true. So you make a fixed decision at a fixed point in time, but that's going to evolve and change, as an 18 to 21 to 25 to 30, and, you're still evolving even now into my 40s. That's just what happens. So I think it's more of a mindset thing, and some people feel comfortable in routine and doing something that they feel comfortable with, and then probably a little bit the opposite. If I find that I'm not enjoying something, I don't see why I should keep. I mean, there's a balance in that. You want to work hard at something before you can assess it. But ultimately, if you're doing something over the long term and you're not enjoying it, as I was sort of working corporate for a little while there on the back of my sort of university qualifications, and it just didn't feel right internally. So the internal compass said, this isn't for me. And, that I thought they'd be pretty crazy to keep going, turning up at the same job every day, getting the same result, and going home feeling pretty empty. So that's, I guess, what turned it around, Jack, and started to change things up. And, often it takes time to sort of make that decision in your head, but actually to then call it. You can think you're going to do something, but it takes a while to transition it to actually doing it. So it took a little while to make a call, because it's a brave call, because, being at any age, once you're in that sort of routine, whether it's an income, whether it's a relationship, it's not easy to break up and change your pattern or change your routine, and then the perception from friends or family, that kind of stuff that we all are challenged by. But eventually it just becomes too much. You go, what, I'm going to be happy you're doing something else. So that's what sort of kicked it off for me. Yeah.
That's really interesting to hear that change. Because I wanted to ask about that, because it's a nice little story that just exemplifies how things aren't set in stone. In the moment, it feels like that, but it's not true. And I'm sure people can think about many times in their life, they look back and think, wow, I thought I was stuck doing that thing, or I thought that was it, but it wasn't, so it's good to hear that. And I actually spoke to a student today as well. They came home from an open day and they were like, I don't know what to do. And it's a crazy time. And you're right, you need to let go of the external things of people's opinions of you, and, what people expect of you versus what do you actually expect of yourself. And if it didn't sit right for you internally, then that's the only voice that matters, not the external fluff around.
Yeah, look, and it's easy to say, it's hard to do. You know what I mean? So the advice is good, but it's still challenging because of the influences around us. Like, there's strong influences, and the younger that you are, the more stronger the influence. With parents and families and friends, and what do these people think, and what if I do that? How am I going to be judged? And as much as we all pretend to think that we're oblivious to that, we're not. But you do tend to get better at that as you get older, to sort of withstand a little bit about that judgment type of thing. But that comes with time.
Absolutely. And you spoke there, Jimmy, about the evolution that you felt like you were evolving and changing, I suppose, at the time, and that came with changing where you wanted to go. So how do you actually think you've perhaps evolved as a teacher? What's helped you improve from the person that was like, okay, I think I want to do this, and you're a new grad and you're just getting into teaching, to where you are now? What are some of the things on the journey that's changed you?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I guess, like anything, when you're first starting a career, like Jack, you could attest to this because you're starting your career right now, you're just kind of happy to be there. You're happy to be involved. You're happy to have a job. You're happy to be getting paid. You're just happy to be part of it. And then after a little while, once that sort of starts to wear thin, you start to settle in a little bit. Well, then you start to think, well, how can I actually get better at what I do? Because I remember in my first couple of years, I wasn't as authentic in my professionalism as I probably should have been, because I knew I could teach. I knew the basics of building relationships, but my professionalism was not there in terms of how much I needed to prepare to make sure that the lesson was the best it could be. And that took me a little while to get my head around that, right? It probably took me 3 or 4 years, and working with a couple of really good mentors that showed me the best way to prepare and the best way to think about your lesson, the best way to treat kids, and also those sort of factors that make a good teacher. And slowly, before I knew it, sort of 5 years in, I'd say I'd become so much better at that side of things, which I never envisaged at the start. I just thought, you just turn up, you do some maths, you help some kids, and you move on. But it's so much richer than that. And it was those mentors that really made a difference to show me that this is what a top standard should be. And then once you're in there, you the person that I am, and I know you guys are very much the same, you always want to get the best out of yourself and provide the best possible service that you can. So it would have taken, I'd say, 5 years to get into that really sort of good mindset and starting to be really professional. And then further to that, then I guess the craft grows with your experience, so you know the curriculum better, you know the tricks better, you know the way kids think better. You understand how kids learn better. So all those things come with time and experience. But I guess overarching is the mindset to want to be better, every day, and I want my students to walk away from a lesson sort of richer for the experience, whether that's a content thing or whether that's just a well-being thing or a confidence thing, or they just walk out of that classroom knowing that they've had a good lesson and that they look forward to my class. Like, that's a big thing to me, because school's challenging enough, let alone the world that we live in. The last few years has just gone crazy. And if we can deliver something for 45 minutes or an hour where somebody walks away feeling good about themselves, well, that's a win. So some of the things that I guess that have progressed me over the years in the way that I think about teaching and the lessons that I try to deliver.
Well, I mean, that's yeah, Isaac. So I know we're both eager to ask more questions, because I just want to pick your brain, and a few of those things spoke true to me as well, because as Isaac said in the introduction, we're all teachers, and as long as a student can finish a lesson, walk away and just feel better. And I agree, it doesn't matter whether it's content or confidence in themselves or anything, just a well-being thing, then that makes it worth it. Because then otherwise, what's the point? You know what I mean? Like, if you can have that as your result, that means everything, right? So that is interesting to hear with that as well. I mean, let's say hypothetically, someone listening right now wants to become a better teacher. Now, it may not necessarily mean as in a teacher in a school in an educational sense, but just in life, like as a friend, or as Isaac said, for us, we're all brothers or fathers or sons or whatever, and this applies to women listening as well. Just anyone listening who want to become better teachers in their relationships, what would you recommend to them?
Well, I guess it's understanding who you want to help and why they want help. And then if you can touch in with their point of need, I think that's the first and most important step. Because if you understand them and you understand why they're doing something and their purpose or their goal for doing that subject, or whether it's within a relationship or nutrition, like I know, Jack, you're like amazing in terms of nutrition, and that's become a big part of your life, and all these things that we can help people with, until we understand why they're in and why they want the help and how we can support them, then you can have the best sort of teacher in the world or the best explainer or the best role model. But unless we engage at their point of need, it makes it futile otherwise. So that's probably the first thing I would start with if I had to start, a fresh relationship in terms of teaching sense.
So you think empathy? It sounds like empathy, like truly understanding what they need help with, is probably step one.
100%. To meet that person at their point of need will not only build the relationship and allow them to trust you to support them, but it will let the learning flow, right? Because they're receptive to what you're going to say, because you understand where they're at and why they want to hear it.
Absolutely. I think that why, and focusing on that why, is so important. But I want to slightly shift there, Jimmy, to I guess, from what Jack was saying, teaching in a broader sense. There's so many people, when they get good at something, they then go, I want to be a coach in this. I'm good at sales. I want to be a business sales coach, right?
Yeah.
And you may see this in education too, where we see teachers that are really talented at, a certain skill, maybe it's maths, English, whatever, but doesn't necessarily translate to good teaching. And where do you think certain, individuals go wrong in actually translating from I'm good at this, right, to I can actually teach this and help the students why?
You want to clarify exactly? I'm not sure what the questions, what you're trying to ask there. It's quite broad. Can you clarify, refine that for me, please?
How do you make the connection between I'm talented at this and I want to teach it, and I know that the student has a why, right? What are the common mistakes you see in people then going to be a teacher, right? We hear students complain, oh, my teacher's not great. It's not this. What are the common sort of pitfalls in being a good teacher?
Look, there's a lot of ego involved in this kind of stuff, as it is in anything in life, and the ability to take on feedback in those formative years is really challenging, right? Because you're throwing yourself out there. Like, teaching is the only job, if you formally go and teach, where you come out as a first year and your responsibility is pretty much the same as someone who's been doing it for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you walk in, you've got your own set of 20 kids, 25 kids, whatever you have, and you're expected to deliver the same kind of quality lesson that someone who's been doing it for 20 years, which is completely unfair, right? So the ability to take on feedback and surround yourself with good role models to help guide you in that space is the most important thing. So unless you're willing to take that feedback on, then it makes the whole process difficult. Because again, feedback is a difficult thing because the kids in general won't tell you. Like it's funny because I tell my own students, this is customer service. You guys are the customer, so I provide the service. But no one's going to say, hey, you're not teaching that really well to me, because they're going to offend you, right? And then you see it's such a feedback oriented industry, both with results and also the feeling of being in a classroom and how the teachers perform, but no one actually sits there and talk about it. So it's this catch-22 that you want to get better, but then no one's actually telling you. The kids aren't telling you it's going to offend you. Then no one's coming into a classroom to actually look at you as a first or second year. I know some of these things have changed over the years, which is a good thing, to give you that direct feedback, right? So you want to be taking that feedback on. You want to be spending time in other classrooms. You want to be modeling yourself on other great teachers within your own personality style as well. You know what I mean? So you don't want to sit there and become someone else, but you want to take the good of everybody that you see around you and then combine that with your own talents and kind of create your own unique brand. And I know you guys, having worked with you now over the years as well, I can see that starting to sort of blossom for you both as teachers and coaches, that you've taken a lot of good things that, you've seen over the years from, some people that you spend time with and with your own brands have now sort of come out with your own styles. And more than happy to attest to how good you've both become, which is just the best thing that you can see as a teacher, to see a couple of people that you've helped to work with or help grow, then become great teachers, and then you're helping grow other people. I mean, that's the essence of what this is all about, really.
No, absolutely. That's it is a bit of a interesting moment to look at, in the sense that, you taught both of us at one point in time. In fact, I remember, I know you taught or worked with Isaac, directly, and you taught me, and then, you taught Isaac what you knew about teaching, and then he taught me what he knew and what you knew about teaching. So it's kind of like we're all helping each other become better educators, but also better people, in the sense of actually how we can actually engage and help people in that way, whether it's academic or not. So that's always interesting to hear. Now, I want to hear, I just popped in my head just now, a brief story. Jimmy, what do you think was the best comeback story ever, in terms of, as an educator, as a teacher? Have you ever worked with a student that you're thinking, there's no way, this student, there's no hope? And then, over time, something has developed or something has happened where the result was wow, I would not have imagined this person come this far. Is there an example of that, or any story of kind of a comeback story?
Look, there's the comeback. It's how you define the comeback story. So, there's a couple of examples. There's on either side of things where you've got a supremely talented kid who might have lost their way a little bit, and then they rediscover, their passion, and they start to work towards their potential, and seeing them sort of hit those, those higher marks or those higher scores is obviously very rewarding. But then just as important, if not more important to me, is the students who are really struggling, for a variety of reasons, whether it's, a lack of motivation or lack of purpose, or just their lack of the ability to sort of be organised and study at those sort of higher ends of high school, who suddenly take on some advice and find some motivation and find some passion and find some work ethic, and through that hard work and unlocking some of those, challenging areas, the comeback stories have been fantastic. So, I think with methods, like we always talk about the cutoff score to get a prerequisite and stuff is 25, so I've had a couple of kids over the years who, when you first meet them, you're thinking, oh God, this kid's going to struggle to get there. And over the course of the year, to see them grind through and take on the feedback and listen to the advice and follow your lead, and then come out with, not only 25, but significantly higher than that, is just an incredible story, and as I tell that student at the end of it, it's not the score that matters here. It's that comeback story that you're talking about that's going to define, is your first sort of evidence of you doing this in your life. And if you can do it once, you're going to be able to do it again, and you can just got to bottle that, and you're going to sort of, use that in different situations. So once you've done it once, it makes it significantly easier to do it again in a different context, because you build that confidence or evidence of how to get out of a challenging situation, that resilience that we all talk about.
Absolutely. And I think it segues perfectly the resilience of what students and teachers have had to do in the past couple of years with the shift in education. And I wanted to focus on that with you. For those that don't know, Jimmy was someone, I think I would say 2019 and before, 100% you were a teacher, physical classrooms, whether that be, studios, wherever, you're always teaching in the physical. And then the shift that we've all saw in the past 2 years of online and stuff. Now you're basically all an online teacher. I mean, you still go sometimes for schools and things, projects, but mainly your teaching is done online. How do you feel that that's changed, and how do you feel that education and teaching has changed with what's capable online?
Look, I think it's one of the real positives that have come out of a few challenging years. The world's so fast paced that students would thrive on that kind of flexibility. Not so much in the classroom sense. I know that's challenging to sit in a back-to-back series of lessons or lectures where you're not engaged and it's not personal. But in terms of the one-on-one space, I think it's absolutely brilliant what's happening. I know the business that we run, it allows us to provide better quality, support in terms of teaching quality that we can offer students at anywhere that they may live, whereas we were sort of bunkered down by the constraints of geography, prior to this happening. Now, if somebody calls me up and says, I need someone in maths in Singapore, I can hand them over to Jack or to you, and I know you guys will do a great job. So that's the learning that is cultivated by allowing better teachers to engage with students anywhere, anytime, is just, I think, significantly changed the world. And it's been one of the best things to come out of a pretty dark couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely, Jimmy. I think the adaptation of technology and using it, some people feel, I guess, a bit weary, right? And what are some things that you've used to sort of engage people when teaching online? A lot of people are going to be teaching online, and they're just going to be starting off talking to a screen, and that's something we all hate. And Jack probably smiled this too. The classic PowerPoint, next slide sort of thing. But how do you engage someone, through the medium, and what have you done to adapt your style to that?
Look, I'm lucky enough that most of my work is one-on-one, all small group, and it's not too difficult to engage because you generally, like what we are doing now, like there's three of us here, but it feels like very engaging because we're all connected through the same conversation, the medium. So the challenge is when you've got more than, a small group, and the challenges that you face, you would need to adapt that, whether you have short breaks or whether you have little quizzes, where you just got to keep things rolling, keep things moving so things don't become stale. Because unless, especially with this generation, and it's not their fault, this is just life, unless they're personally engaged, you're gonna sort of tune out. So I think the duration and the intensity of almost bite-sized little lessons or bite-sized little chunks of teaching, mixed up with little activities, I think that would be a nice way to do things, right? Rather than just go the whole hog and just talk the whole time, and then just that passive kind of learning. It just doesn't work in this medium. You can kind of do it in the classroom because you can get in front of someone physically and have a chat and ask a question. But unless people are being engaged like this, it's going to be pretty tough to get what you want to teach across, right? That's the challenge.
It's been interesting having to transition your skills that you've honed over so many years into an online medium. And yeah, most of it, if not all of it, does apply. It's just now you're building on that in a new medium, in the digital kind of space. How has that impacted your life personally? Do you feel like, you may feel like you have more flexibility now that you're working online, but more broadly, like in your life, physically going to a school every day, now to you may go to a school every once in a while, or you may do online. Like, what's that shift like in your lifestyle? Like, what kind of impact has that had on you?
Yeah, it's a significant shift because obviously physical location of workplace and that routine of getting up and getting in your car and doing those things is now changed completely. So definitely enjoy wearing my trackies more these days than I did back when I had to be at a workplace. And it's just a change of routine. That's all it really becomes, is a change of routine. And dependent on where you are at what stage of your life, like obviously being a little bit older now, having a young family, this kind of suits me a lot because I get to spend some time with the family more and be able to sort of support my wife in looking after the kids a bit more. So that's been a real win. But you do miss the workplace in the sense of the relationships, right? You're being in there with real people in the moment is still very special. It's something that I do miss, that collegiality, that kind of stuff. And even seeing the students in person and being able to have a chat in person is, again, a little bit like where we started tonight, writing in the diary, has that authenticity attached to it. And I think that physical being somewhere still has that really special meaning, I'd rather have a real coffee than as much as I love you guys, I'd rather a real coffee together than a virtual coffee right now. You know what I mean? So it's a different feeling, but yet it's been a really rewarding lifestyle change for myself and my set of circumstances, and one I'm pretty grateful for, that I can sort of work anywhere, anytime, and sort of do things the way that I think's best for my family. So that's a massive win. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I usually, Jimmy, synthesize and summarize all the things we discuss, and I go from the top of what we did this week. So my thing of the week is writing an ideas kind of journal, getting it out. Jax was eating more fish, loves it, and helping
So
with his meal prep.
So random,
No.
but we're authentic. That's the only thing really I've done differently this week. So
That's what it is. And then Jimmy's, which I love as well, is getting towards the ocean. You know, getting that visual aspect of seeing it. You know, obviously when the weather permits, but you know, it's been great for him. But then we went through and I synthesized, I guess, the key things that Jimmy spoke about, and he spoke about his teaching journey and starting to transition through mentorship. That was something he sought out, mentorship, to get feedback to help him sort of improve his skills and develop into the teacher he is. And then the next thing I thought was very profound is find the students' why. Why do they want to learn this, or why are they in this position? Why are they coming to you? And then after you've got that why and the mentorship, it's taking on the feedback, you know, from your lessons or the way you teach. Be willing to humble yourself to take on that feedback to improve. And then the last, sort of reflecting the past couple of years, is be willing to adapt. And we spoke about using online mediums. So, you know, being adaptive to the landscape is so important. How did I go with the summary, boys?
so good.
You're the king of summaries, my man.
I'm a synthesizer. That's my new job title.
You're an instrument.
Jimmy, can you change my job title to the synthesizer?
You boys write your own job titles these days. Do whatever you want.
Make it up.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you, Jimmy, for joining us. I really appreciate it. And thank you for sharing just your own personal insights there. So, Jack, you can wrap us up.
Thank you so much for listening. Yeah, thank you so much, Jimmy, again for joining us. Hopefully we'll have you on again soon. And thank you for everyone listening. Hopefully you've taken one or two things away from here about how to become a better teacher, or even just through Jimmy's story and his learnings, what he's done. You may have taken something away from that. So thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.